Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this Monday's Wealth Creation Show. So we've decided to do a three-part mini-series within the Wealth Creation Show, and today we're starting part one. Now it's happiness and prosperity. It's going to be this wee mini-series, Jim. And part one today, we're going to talk about how some people become wealthy and rich, and other people don't. And we've broken it down into 7 different categories today to kind of try and compartmentalize the seven sections that we're going to cover today. So there are 7 big differences between people who, well, we talk about rich and we talk about wealthy, but they're slightly different, I suppose, as we've covered before in other shows. But why people struggle with money is really an important factor. And people who become wealthy have particular ways of thinking and line their lives with certain and specific habits as well. So if you're not happy and prosperous, you might want to consider some of the things that we're going to cover today and whether they actually apply to you.
That's probably 91% of the population.
Yes.
I would say. I would argue that 91% of the population, it's a well-known statistic, isn't happy with what they're doing right now. So why are they doing it? If that's the case, why are they doing it? And you're absolutely right. This is what we should talk about. The 3-part series, it is about happiness and prosperity, as you've said, Richard. Yeah. But the first one is definitely all about why is it that some people get rich and super wealthy, and just others don't. That's the reality.
Yeah, and we touch on it quite a lot when we do the shows about the difference in people's mindset and how they approach life and how they control their own mindset and their habits and how this all marries together to ultimately make them successful and wealthy in comparison to the majority, and they are the minority. And we talk about the 95% and the 5% quite a lot. Now, happiness and prosperity, as we talk about the first part one, about how people, the differential between people that get wealthy and rich and people that don't, it comes a lot back to your beginnings and what you learn at school and what you're taught by your peers and your parents and the people around you. And the first point we're going to cover today is people not thinking seriously enough about money, because it's really not taught to you, to be fair. I mean, it wasn't taught to me, and I didn't realize the importance until later on in life. And it's maybe a question that everybody should think: have you ever really sat down and thought seriously about money? Or do you just live day to day or week to week or month to month, like the majority of people do?
Yeah.
And one big reason most people don't become rich and wealthy is that they have not been given the importance of money. They have not given the importance of money any serious thought.
I don't think anybody has a clue what they're talking about when they talk about money. They don't even think about it at all. They think money is going to bring them happiness, but it's not the money that brings them happiness. It's what you can do with the money.
Yeah.
I jokingly say many times, if you want a problem to go away, just beat it to death with a bag of money. And it more than likely will go away because of that, because that usually solves most problems in people's lives. Most couples argue about money, but it's not the abundance of money, it's the lack of it. Yeah. And who should be doing what. And this is what causes a lot of tension within relationships as a natural result of that. But we're not taught it. You're absolutely right, Richard. We're not taught it at school. We don't have any insight into it at all. It's kind of an urban myth. We're not even taught budgeting skills at school either. Nobody's taught anything like that. Interestingly enough, on TikTok here, and the gentleman says, or no, I'm no Several. Okay, people want safety and are afraid of failure, and to be successful, failure is part of the process of being successful. Absolutely right, nailed it. Really, you've got to be some sort of failure to go through it. But we're always taught at school to get it right every single time, and woe betide you if you don't get it every right. Now, we're coming on to talk about happiness and prosperity, and I'll tell you one thing, I ain't happy most of the time. There's a revelation, eh? I ain't happy most of the time. I could have all this wealth going, but I ain't happy. I'm just content. Yeah. Happiness is a difficulty for me because I'm such a stickler and a perfectionist in terms of what I do. So Hence the reason why I put so much pressure on myself as a result of that. Therefore, that's why sometimes I'm just not happy. So I've reconciled myself with the fact that contentness is where it is. If you want to be content, you're probably going to be quite successful every single day in doing that, because contentness is a lot easier to achieve than happiness. Now, what I'll say to you, though, is if you try to achieve happiness and you don't achieve it, you will not be content. If you try to achieve contentness, you will more than likely be happy as a result of that. Now, I'm not lowering my expectations. I'm just being realistic about where I think and where I am and how I am as a person. This is interesting. We'll talk about prosperity as well. Let's analyse that. The prosperity is about the condition of being successful or thriving is prosperity. The condition of being successful or thriving. Now, that could be economic, it could be well-being, it could be anything. It makes you successful at that in itself. So happiness and prosperity is would I say is a mindset more than anything. You know, how do you feel about yourself? How do you feel within yourself? And that first one you talked about, Richard, was, you know, not thinking seriously about money.
Yeah.
But we're not taught to think seriously about money. No one wants for you to think seriously about money, by the way. And I will be very matrix orientated here. The system doesn't want to teach you how to be prosperous. The system does not want to teach you how to be successful in everything, because the system wants you to work and fit into the system to be a good worker ant.
Yeah.
Just do your job, go home, enjoy yourself, come back, do your job, go home, enjoy yourself, come back, do your job, go home. See that sort of scenario? It's just like an ant colony. You can just look at it like that. We all have our part to play in terms of that. And the majority of the ants will just work. They're worker ants. That's what they want to do. And that's what they're happy to do, because that's what they're conditioned to do. But for the small minority, and I will say the small minority today, because it is 95%, 5% group, and that will always be throughout history. You've just got to choose to be in the 5% group, by the way, and the 95% group will, because that's how it always happens. Because if everybody then in the 95% group, if 5% of the 5% of people actually went to be super wealthy, they would push that 5% that's there already into the 95% group, because there'd be a new benchmark set as a result of that. It's just like averages. You know, if your average income is £30,000 and all of a sudden you get 40, then you're above average. But what happens when the average income moves up to 40,000? Yeah, well, you're average again. So you fall into your natural slot as a result. So therefore, that's what it is. They don't teach people to think seriously about money because they don't want them to think seriously about money. They just want them to buy stuff, buy shit, and that's it. Buy stuff that to impress people you probably don't like. That's the whole point. That's what this is all about. Instagram. Woohoo! Look at me. Look how successful I am. Look at all these things I've got. These things aren't going to do anything for you when you're lying on your deathbed. You're screwed. Incidentally, this is quite interesting. I had a gentleman actually, and it's kind of like on the same happiness, prosperity, and the thinking and all the rest of it. I've contacted him at the weekend. I wanted him to do my camper van, to clean it and valet it and all the rest of it. And I looked at his profile and I went, "Ooh, Audi Quattros, Porsches, you know, all the rest of it." And it's like, and I'm wanting him to do my 1981 T25 camper van.
Yeah.
And I was interested to see how he would think. So I sent it to him anyway. And yeah, that was fantastic. I'll do it. And I thought, yeah, you've got the right mindset. He never got caught up in the status about the fact that, oh, that's not something I'd really want to do. A lot of people would actually do that. They would actually get caught up in the status of this. They don't think about it. And yet, I was saying to Ian this morning, actually, I will probably be his biggest customer in terms of price. I'm happy to pay him £200 or £300 to do this.
And if he does it good, you go back, then you continue to go back.
His highest price point, Richard, is £140.
Okay.
But if he says to me it's going to cost £200 or £300, it's like, I no bother, fine. Way off my mind, because I don't need to do it then. And I know what needs to be done to it, and I need an expert to do it. And my time's more valuable to me than anything else, anywhere else. Yeah. And that's the key here. So I kind of thought it was interesting. So he probably does think seriously, but I need to pick him up on it, because he did say to me, "Oh, and I'll throw in a free wax wash as well." And it's like, what? I'm buying from you already. I'm buying from you already, and you're telling me you're going to give me something for free? Are you nuts?
Yeah.
So I'll have a wee word one. I do not like giving small business. I do not like getting stuff for free. because I know what it costs to give stuff for free. So therefore, and I'm in a comfortable position, so I don't need it for free. I just need you to charge me the right price so you can sustain and be in business and actually enjoy what you do because you're getting properly rewarded for it.
Yeah. And that's and we're going to talk in a wee minute about obviously enjoying and loving what you do. So that's an interesting way to take that story. But it's interesting also what the guy on TikTok says there about people and feeling comfortable. And a lot of people are just happy in their 9 to 5 job, work, come home, enjoy themselves, go back to work, buy things in between. And it feels comfortable, and that's their comfort zone. But
Yeah.
people who are successful and wealthy, and even people meteoric success, you have to push yourself outside that comfort zone continually, and that's the only way to really better yourself and be successful. And the majority of people don't do that, and that's why there's such a big differential between people who do the day-to-day, stay in that comfort zone, and the small minority who excel and become very successful and wealthy. Most people just think about the money that they have and what they need to live day to day or month to month. And as long as a big crisis or something that's not going to cost them a lot of money comes along, they don't really think much more about it.
Most people don't believe they're worth that.
Yeah, that's true.
This is why they don't think seriously about money, because they don't believe what their true worth is. Now, I'll be honest with you, you'll never get paid what you're worth. You'll get paid what the job's worth to do.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it comes down to. I could go out and be a window cleaner and I'll be paid a minimum wage. I can go out and run a company as a financial director. I'll pay an astronomical salary as a result of that. I've got skills for both because I was both at either ends of the spectrum. I started off as a window cleaner, ended up as a financial director. So I've got both skill set, but you see how they both pay completely different levels.
Mm-hmm.
And yet I've got both skill set. I am still the same person. So you're never really going to be paid what you're worth. You're only paid what the job's worth, and that's what it's down to. So if you love what you do and you're happy with the salary as a result, then that's fine. Good on you. You're having a fantastic time. If you want more though, and you just want that wee bit extra, then these are the sort of things you've got to learn about. It's about how to handle money and how you should seriously think about it. But a lot of people put it aside. Now, I'll tell you why a lot of people put it aside in their mind, because they've constantly grown up with their parents arguing about money. That's why they put it aside, because it is too traumatic for them to think about money, especially if they're in a relationship with other partner. And this is what it's like, because they get flight or fight response to it. That's what happens every single time when these relationships. So they don't want to know about the money. They just want somebody else to deal with it for them because it's too traumatic for them to do. This is what causes a lot of ADHD, by the way. There's a lot of scientific evidence that ADHD is not anything to do with something wrong with you. It's something that's happened to you in the past.
An emotional thing, yeah.
It's not a hereditary thing. And it's not something you should really medicate for. It's something you should actually deal with. It's something that's happened in the past that's caused the problem. And that's why people zone out, because they don't want the trauma of having to go through this again. So this is why they're attention deficit disorder. It does what it says in the tin.
Yeah.
That's why
and essentially dealing with trauma. And you see like people that have been through like really big traumas and things, they completely block it out of their mind. Subconsciously just completely block it out and forget it even happened.
Yeah. So ADHD is a product of the environment the person's lived in as a result of that, and that's why they grow up with it for that reason. That's scientific fact. There's lots and lots of evidence to suggest that at all. It's nothing to do with it's going to be hereditary, it's going to pass on to someone else. It's not an illness or anything like that. It's something that's happened in the past. It can be dealt with and resolved without the drugs. It's it's kind of like a depression thing. It's like you would take the drugs to help you through that process, but you really need to sort the thing out. And if you are like that, just take your advice from your doctor.
Yeah.
Okay, so this then comes down to then. So the second one for me then is, well, this is the 91% of people are working in a job that they hate. They don't like, they don't enjoy at all. 91% of the population is working in a job that they don't enjoy at all. They don't enjoy doing it. They don't love doing it. It's a big obstacle to gaining wealth, definitely. I would say so. And it's that mindset that drives the result. If you're not doing what you really love, and you're probably wasting a great deal of your life. Remember, you're only going round once.
Yeah.
Again, this comes back to, isn't it, when you're growing up, where your parents usually say to yourself, I mean, at some point in time, maybe Taylor Swift's parents said to herself, why do you not just get a real job? Or somebody's bound to have said that to her at some point in their life, and then she's on the Forbes list now as a billionaire.
Yeah.
Now that's nothing, because that could be a billionaire as in assets. Billionaire in assets. Yeah, I don't dismiss it saying it's nothing. By the way, what I'm saying is, asset worth. She's not got a billion in the bank.
No.
Put it that way. That would be pretty naive of our financial advisors just to have a billion in the bank sitting there doing nothing. It has to work for you. So she's maybe got a billion in assets. Good on her. She's a good example of
I think she's
got
a big property portfolio as well.
Yeah, strong example about a good businesswoman. Good head on her, definitely. So she obviously does what she loves, and she's learned how to monetize it. So if you're out there and you're kind of thinking to yourself, I love doing what I do, then why would I not do that every single day as a result of that? I just love it. I love doing what I do. I love getting up and doing what I do. Just learn how to monetize it. So doing what you love is probably the most important thing, because that'll lead you to overall happiness and prosperity.
Yeah, I think it's like you say, Jim, people who are doing their day-to-day job, working all the hours, and they don't enjoy it at all. I mean, you really need to look at that, because it takes up the biggest part of most days in the week. And if you don't really enjoy it, then your heart won't be in it. And this affects how much money you make, because then it maybe affects your productivity in that job as well, because you won't be interested in doing the best you could do it at.
Yeah.
Do you know, there's a lot of knock-on things that could happen with not really enjoying or loving what you do. And like you say,
I find it quite interesting that I find it quite interesting, and I talked to a lot of people about this, about when they buy a house when they're younger, and I talk to them about it, and I say to them, what are you thinking about for your house? Well, we can get a mortgage up to, and I used to tell them all the time, we can get a mortgage up to 300,000 between the two of us, and I went, okay, that's fine, but do you need a property at 300,000? I mean, you have two just now. Do you know just your first house, maybe just an apartment? Get an apartment, see what you're like living together. If it doesn't work out, at least one of you can afford to keep the apartment. If it does work out, then quids in, then you're perfect together, or even rent in the beginning as well to find out if you can live together. Because often when you love each other, it's a whole different story when you move in together. Whole different story. Totally. I found that out with my brother and his wife, or ex-wife. Well, that tells you everything. Because they did that. They loved each other and they moved in and it all went pear-shaped. And whereas Elaine and I moved in together, just to see how we got on. And it was a match made in heaven, I would say. And that's how it's important to have the right partner as well. Instantly, I was watching Diary of a CEO this morning. I was watching Diary of a CEO, I was listening to it, and it was all about other things. But she was asked a question at the end, the person, and she says, what's the most important thing anybody should ever know? And the answer to that, she said, pick your partner wisely, because your success will be dependent on the partner that you pick for the rest of your life. Your success will be dependent on the person that you pick as your partner for the rest of your life, if you do pick a partner. Or if you're happy by yourself, fill your boots, you're having a great time by yourself. It's going to be awfully lonely when you get to about 50 and you've got no kids. That would be a different scenario. But it's doing what you love, and then going back to the thing about the house and everything like that. It's like, why do you need to buy something so big? Because what happens if later on, when you decide I want a change in career, I really need to go and educate myself in accountancy or legal aspect or psychology or mathematics or chemistry or physics or being a pharmacist or anything like that. I want to go back. I really wanted to be that. I really wanted to be that. And it's like, well, I'm sorry, you bought this big, massive house, you've got these two fantastic cars, and therefore you've caught yourself in the poverty trap. You're now broke at a different level. And you've caught yourself in the poverty trap, and you can't get out of the poverty trap now because you're on the hamster wheel. You can't get out of that because you've got to pay for your cars, you've got to pay for your mortgage for your house, and you need the two incomes to do that. That's another story about what about ability to perform. What if one of them go actually ill? What if you become pregnant? And it's like you have to take time off and you don't get that amount of money. It's like, how can you take that hit? This is what my daughter said that as well to me recently. It's like, oh well, it's like maybe I couldn't afford to. It's like, what? Have you been listening to me lately? It's like, do you realise what I've got? It's going to
Yeah,
be you.
I think she'll be okay.
It's going to be
It's true.
yours.
It's really true though when you speak about partners and things, and it's like, are you able to, do you support each other, and like emotionally, and also like if one was wanting to do something, can you financially be able to run on one salary, and do you really prop each other up, or do you tear each other down? And because that's just toxic. Yeah,
You're
yeah,
either going to build up your partner or you're going to tear them down, but
yeah.
each of them will affect your income, and
Mhm.
that goes both ways for both partners in the relationship. You'll
Yeah.
tear them down or you'll build them up. But if you whatever you'll get will be a reflection of the income that you'll have and the wealth you'll have as a natural result of that.
Mhm.
So if you're not doing what you love, I tell you what, just get used to the grind, okay? If that's what you're wanting to do, but get
Yeah.
used to the grind and start a side hustle as well at the same time. Do something at on the side. Do something that's extra. Do something that will generate a wee bit more income for you.
Mhm.
Do something that's gonna get you out of that situation. Give you that wee bit extra income so you can make a better choice. You maybe got somebody local, local business. It makes it more sense to work locally. I mean, I worked it out when I was in accountancy. I worked out traveling to Edinburgh every single day to work with Standard Life was costing me about £2,000 a year. Now at that time, I was only getting paid £9,000 a year.
That's a lot
So
back then.
£2,000 a year out of my income is like, wow, that's a huge amount of money just in travel. But more importantly as well, it was about 2.5 hours a day I was losing with the travel back and forward.
Yeah.
And then I worked out, it's like, I could just take a £2,000 pay cut and save all these hours. And I could
Mhm.
actually enjoy myself and do something else. So I did. I went to work locally at a manufacturing business. I took the pay cut, I trained, and as a result, I ended up being a financial director.
Yeah.
So it's that taking a step back to move 3 steps forward is probably sometimes the most important thing that you should do at that point in time to get away from not doing from the situation where you're not doing what you love.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely, and I think we've covered it before, but you could see that successful people, and that's without any exception, they all do exactly what they love. I mean, do you love what you do, Jim?
Every single day.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't admit it, and sometimes I don't look like it.
Well, but not every day.
Honestly,
I mean, like you say,
no, I tell you,
you can't be happy
it was
every day.
interesting. I was interesting, Richard. This will be a good one. I bumped into Deborah at the weekend. I was out running, so I went out
Yeah.
for a 5K to see how I got on. I wasn't feeling it, but I still went out and did it. And I went out and
Yeah.
did a cycle the next day. Still wasn't feeling it, but I went and did it because I know I've got to taper off for the triathlon next week
Yeah.
on Sunday. So I just disciplined myself to do it. But I bumped into Deborah and I had a conversation where I went, I'm not feeling it today, and I went, oh, I've never seen you like that before. I went, well, everybody thinks it's all
Yeah.
sweetness and roses for me, and it all falls into my lap all the time, but it's not.
Yeah.
And this is a newsflash. It's not like that for anybody. Look at Musk. He's taking ketamine tranquilizers for his depression.
God.
Yeah, he takes
That's
ketamine tranquilizers for his depression because it helps him lift. It helps him give him a lift. And he thinks that he's beneficial for him, so it works for him, so that's fine. But that's
But then
Musk.
that's a big. I mean, to
Fine.
stop that, he's going to come down crashing down if he's
Well,
never.
Richard, he's taking doctor's advice and all the rest of it. But if it worked for him, it worked for him. But he was quite open and honest about it.
Yeah.
But there's one of the guys that's deemed to be one of the most successful people in the world and the richest people in the world, and yet look at the state of him. When you think
Mhm.
about it, do you think he's really happy? No, he's not. But he realizes the vision he's got, and when he gets to his deathbed, I think he'll be happy with the overall achievement he's had.
Mhm.
And the overall impact he's had on society. So for him, it's across the bear. And like most entrepreneurs, we just jump out the window, learn to fly on the way down. And
Yeah.
sometimes learning to fly on the way down is quite stressful and takes a lot of energy to do it. And that's why it typically sometimes it doesn't look like I'm happy, but hey, I'm happy most of the time. I just don't notify my face that often.
Do you know that kind of night? It brings us nicely on to the next topic we're going to cover, and that's and obviously stress and dealing with that, and maybe depression and all the rest of it can really be a result of maybe not believing that you could actually do it. And a lot of people have that. They don't have that self-belief, and they have that self-doubt, and it's one of the biggest obstacles that towards happiness and prosperity. If you don't believe you aren't capable, it doesn't matter how badly off you are, you can achieve your goals as long as you never give up. And
Yeah.
I think that's what it's not giving up and letting it like consume you. Yeah.
You've maybe seen the post at the weekend that I shared from 2010 with Richard Branson. So I shared that with Richard Branson, where we went to the leadership summit.
Yeah, we were
Richard
down
was
in
in the
London,
room. You had that one-to-one with Richard Branson. We were beside him and all the rest of it, and
Yeah.
getting his insight into where he saw business and how he was entrepreneurial and what he was doing and how we could help ourselves as well. At that time, I did say in the post, I did say, who would have thought 14 years later I would spend a week with Richard Branson on his private island? And I actually said, me. Yeah, I would have thought that. Yeah, because I expected it to happen. I believed it could happen. And it happened as a natural result of that. And I didn't feel uncomfortable about it. I was like, wow, it did happen. It's like, holy shit, it's happening. It's like, and everybody goes, you spend a week with Richard Branson? It's like, yep, I did. And I got a great insight, and I spent some time cycling with him, spent some time in the, out in the hobby crafts with him, spent some time playing chess, and all the rest of it. And at the breakfast table, sitting next to each other, having a wee chat and stuff like that. And it's like, that is mind-blowing when you think about it. But to me, it was quite perfectly normal, because I saw that and expected it to happen. Now, over the last 14 years, when I've told that to people, folk will go, oh, delusional. It's like, but I don't discount the fact that anything could happen. You just have to. It's just a matter of time and waiting for opportunity. If you're primed for opportunity, then you believe. You have faith in yourself. You believe it can actually happen. So you're primed for this, Richard. You're primed all the time. So when opportunity arises, there's no surprise. The people that are successful are the people that take that opportunity and run with it.
Yeah.
There's a good one here. When I go to the festivals at the Edinburgh, a lot of people look at all the stars standing out in the forecourt talking to each other, all the celebrities. Whereas I walk over, shake their hand and go, congratulations, thanks. And some of them say, thanks for what? It says, just for being you. It's like, just for contributing what you do and the comedic aspect, it gives people happiness. And they're like, oh, thanks very much. And then that's the end of the conversation. I walk away. I don't sit and go, can I get a selfie? I'm starstruck. Oh my God. It's like, no, it's just another person like anybody else. It's just that we see them constantly on the television and constantly in the media. We put them up on a pedestal in our mind.
Yeah, we get put, yeah.
But if you have belief, that's why you don't get that starstruck thing. Because you believe at some point in time you will actually meet them. That's it, in a nutshell. I mean, Elaine was a bit different when we went to Jackson's.
She's a bit starstruck.
Elaine was a wee bit starstruck with Jackie and Tito and Marlon and Jermaine. It's like, and I was going, all right, guys. It's like, and I said to Jermaine, it's taken me 40 years to see you guys live. And Jermaine went, 40 years? How on earth did that happen? I says, I've just worked all my life.
Yeah.
That's the reality. Ever since I've been young, I've always wanted to meet the Jacksons. Sadly, Michael wasn't there because obviously he had passed away at that time. But I'd always wanted to. So that was my golden opportunity. So I was primed for it. It wasn't starstruck for me. It was like, wow, it's the Jacksons, superb. Whereas Elaine was a completely different thing. But it's belief, it got that.
Yeah,
belief
that belief and trying to get rid of that self-doubt in yourself and what you can achieve and where you want to go.
Yeah.
And it's true. It's like the average person, they are usually inclined just to, if they hit a bump in the road, or they fail at something maybe the first time round, and they are inclined just to give up. And that's a shame, because then that just shows they don't have a lot of the self-belief in themselves and what they can achieve.
Ordinary people become extraordinary by just doing that wee bit extra. Ordinary, extraordinary. That's all you need to do. Ordinary people become extraordinary people because of just doing that wee bit extra more than everybody else. Just that bit more every single time. And the belief follows a natural result of that.
Yeah. I put a wee quote in here from Henry Ford, and he says that there are people who believe they will succeed, and there are people who believe that they will fail. And both of them are right.
Yeah, absolutely. I can say that every single time. If you believe you can achieve it, you're absolutely right. If you believe you can't, you're absolutely right. Same situation. And both are actually right in their own context, because one believes and one doesn't. But it all goes down as well, though. The fourth one that we're talking about is not having the right knowledge and the habits that form as a natural result of that.
Yeah.
If you've not got habits that form as a result of what you're doing every day, day in, day out, you're on a slow burner to not going anywhere. The difficulty of that, because you have to create habits in order to keep doing it and sustaining it
Good
all the time.
habits as well.
Yeah, well, look at I have no idea how many years or days or months or that is now. I've been live every single day.
Mm-hmm.
So every single day, probably since April, when I was challenged in April 2020 to do a
2020.
live every single day for 30 days in a row, I have done live every single day on social media
Mm-hmm.
since that time. That is 4 years now. That is
Yeah.
literally over 1,000. I mean, what's 365 times 4? But 1,500 days in a row.
I know you were over 1,000.
Yeah, so about 1,500 days in a row, I've been going live every single day on social media. Is there any surprise that most people in our locality, a big fish, small pond, all that sort of scenario, I jumped out a bigger pond, everybody going, who? It's like, why do you not know me? It's like, we're in London. It's like, who are you? It's like, you're in Fife, that's all right. Northeast Fife, even better. You've got a good chance that you'll probably know me. But that's it. I'm okay with that. I'm happy with that. That's all I want to. That's all I'm wanting to do, and it hits my target as a natural result of that. But there's a lot of real world practical information you need to know in order to become prosperous, like things like finance and tax and business knowledge, to name but a few. And that's where it comes back to my accountancy.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody goes, "Oh, it was all right for you. You trained to be an accountant." If that's the case, then why is every accountant not as successful then?
Yeah, that's true.
If I trained to be an accountant,
applied your knowledge in the same way you have.
Why? Yeah, exactly. So a basic understanding. This is what people need to learn at school. This is what everybody should be forced to learn. I would say, honestly, they should be forced to learn this and need to know this as a result of that. Is how to handle finances, how to read a balance sheet, how to read a P&L, how to understand income and expenditure, assets and liabilities on a basic scale, basic bookkeeping. That's all they need to know. Because when they understand basic bookkeeping, there's a foundation laid right there for financial success later on. Might not need it at that point in time, but they'll probably need it later on in life, especially when it comes down to balancing their finances. It's probably never had an opportunity to learn any of these skills in a systematic kind of way, I suppose. And it's possible to gather most of what you need to know in any one place. So I am members of like personal tax forums, landlord tax forums, investor forums, and all the rest of it. And you see all these different questions coming up, and you see all the different answers coming up. Now I know what the answer is really, and it's amazing how many people give misinformation out there.
Yeah.
To some of these questions, and I'm like, oh my god! All I do is I go and talk from my point of view. This is what I do, and this is why I do it. It might be beneficial to you as a result of that. I talked about the pensions at the weekend and having a limited company. So the great thing about having a pension is you can use it to bring yourself down to low rate tax. You can contribute towards it, and you can alleviate your high rate tax position as a result of that and be a basic rate taxpayer right on the borderline. That then as well, you can use a limited company, for example, to pay yourself in dividends, which is a better marginal tax rate. You're not paying national insurance on it. You are paying corporation tax on it though, but you can also use it to contribute to personal pension as well as a result of that. So there's different, without actually having to take it out and put it back in, because then you'll have tax and national insurance on it just to put it back in and get the tax back, but you lose the national insurance. So that's why you wouldn't want to do that. That's why being a business owner and actually being a director is a big tax advantage. Definitely, I would say. All these different things you need to know, and most people are not aware that what they need to know in order to make any kind of money overall. On an off chance they do get the opportunity to hear the essential advice, they actually treat it with suspicion.
We were talking about this last week, yeah.
Yeah, it's like suspicious about everything. Why would you want to tell me that? Well, Wealth Creation Show all about, for me, for example, why do I want to tell people right now? What's this all about? What are you trying to sell me? I'm not trying to sell anybody anything. This is just a record for me before I put my clogs in 50 years' time or whatever it'll be, and at least I'll have some sort of historical information left for my grandchildren and great grandchildren and all the rest of it to come, if we ever have any. Maybe need to adopt to keep the line of succession going. But that's the sort of thing. So it's just a historical thing. I mean, I'm if you want something done, ask a lazy person. My brother said to me at the weekend, he says, I tell you what, how did you get so successful? Because he said, when I knew you when you were younger, 40 years ago, you were just a lazy vampire. And it's like, yeah, I know, but I just got temporarily ambitious to be permanently lazy. That's it. So he says, because you worked over the last 40 years and you've actually changed everything in your life for the better. He says, how did you manage to do that? And this is basically what we talk about all the time. So not learning about money in a positive, systematic way is the fourth reason why most people don't get rich.
Yeah.
Other people will hold you back, by the way. They deliberately hold you back because they don't want you to learn about money, because then you'll look more successful than them. And we're taught in our society not to applaud people that are successful. We're taught to tear people down for their success.
Definitely.
Because
and social media
we
is
all
just
get together. Yeah, it's like, oh, but if you're successful and you grew up with me at the same background, it's like, you're going to make me look bad. Yeah, you're going to make me look bad. And it's like, I didn't want you. I don't want, I'll be a bit moderate success, but I don't really want you to be as successful as me, because you're going to make me look bad. People, when I first started out on a stage and say, we had to help other people become successful for us to be successful, because we were in a franchise organization.
Yeah.
So if the self-employed estate agents weren't successful, we weren't earning money either. And one guy who, bless his soul, because he's no longer here, he had a massive heart attack at a young age. It's like, my God, it's like, you never know. But he actually turned around to me one day, and I didn't care what this is all about, trying to help other people to make money and all the rest of it so you could make money. He says, I didn't care what this is all about. I'm just leaving. And it's like, he just couldn't get it. Yeah. Because the way he was brought up was completely different. His mother or father, whoever that is, the people round about him obviously taught about the only way you're going to be successful is to climb over everybody else.
Step on everyone else to get to where you want to be, rather than let everybody lift each other up. Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably how most people that don't become successful actually stay away from being successful, or stay away or shy away from having money, because they feel embarrassed, they feel guilty as a result of the success they've got, they feel the money they've got as a result of that as well. This is why when most people win the lottery, it used to be the Littlewoods pools. Now, Littlewoods pools is probably a great example. Yeah. The coupon, or whatever they used to call it. When most people used to win $1 million on the coupon, on the horses or the football pools, from the Littlewoods, what used to happen is they would lose the whole lot within a couple of years, because they had no knowledge and expertise of how to keep it. And everybody else round about them wanted a bit of it, and all they did was give it all away. Now, very admirable for them giving it all away, but they've got nothing to show for it at all. They've got no generational wealth. They've got nothing. Yeah. They've got no assets or anything like that they invested in. It was more or less all the thing. This is the worst thing to do, by the way. If you win the lottery or come into a huge amount of money from someone else, do not start your own business. Sorry? You tell me not to start my own business? Because you should have started your own business well before that.
Yeah.
And then you would have been successful. Because most people that do that end up not being successful, because they use the money that they've come into and inherited to start their own business, but they've not acquired all the skills and expertise to run a business in the first place. So it's often wasted, because the play at being a business person, they like the idea of people saying, oh, how successful you are. Look at your brand new car. Look at your successful business. It's like, but they're not making any money. Mm-hmm. Like, that's not successful. If it's not making any money, maybe look the part. You maybe got a beautiful place all laid out and a beautiful office and all the rest of it. But that's all money you've spent. You've not actually made any money to actually recoup for the investment and the return that you've got.
Yeah.
See how I start to talk about numbers and finances now.
Mm-hmm.
Totally different thing, isn't it? So it's that sort of thing. But then this comes down to the fifth one. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. That just brings us in nicely to courage, motivation, and decision-making abilities, or should I say the lack of? Because it does take courage to become successful and wealthy and rich, and this is because you have to change. You have to change things about yourself and how you do things. And many people lack that courage and motivation to change and end up leading ordinary lives like the majority of the population. And regardless of who or where you live, we are all surrounded by chances and opportunities. You just need to be able to identify what they are and take the risk and the chance, and have the courage to pursue them and make them work for you. So I think whether you decide to get on the bus called chance, so obviously look at chances and opportunities, or whether you just watch it go by, determines whether you become that ordinary person or whether you're somebody who's wildly successful, who lives each day in a happy prosperity. Not happiness, happy prosperity.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, definitely. But this really comes down to, do you believe in yourself? Do you have faith in yourself? And I would say if I was to go out in the street and ask people, and just if I was going to ask people with a microphone and it was going to be lively broadcast, most people would say, yeah, I probably do believe in myself. But if you ask people in a private survey, do you believe in yourself? I think most people would say they don't.
You'd get a lot of different answers, yeah.
Be honest with yourself. Do you believe in yourself? Do you have the courage? Do you have the motivation? Do you have the aptitude, the decision-making ability to do anything about it? Do you have the knowledge and expertise? And the majority of people will say no. Simon Squibb, is it Simon Squibb or something like that? He goes out and asks people if you weren't doing this right now, walks into McDonald's, if you weren't doing this right now, what would you be doing? And the person sometimes says, oh, I would have my own pet shop. If I could help you start your own pet shop right now, would you do it now? If I could help you start. And often most people say, well, you only broadcast the good ones, eh? Yeah, absolutely. So and they do, he goes and helps them start their own pet shop or whatever it is they want to do, and they're successful in some shape or form as what they want to do. But for him, obviously, it's a channel to sell what he's selling. I don't know what that is, what he's trying to do, but he's just but he's a kind of serial entrepreneur. He tries to get people engaged with small business and tries to champion small business, which is great for Simon, and it's great he's actually doing that. But it's interesting to see that when he goes in to interview everybody and they say, I'd rather do something else. So what stops you from doing something else? What stops you from doing what you want to do? What stops you from getting that dream job? What stops you from starting your own business? What stops you from moving to another area? What stops you from leaving the country and going overseas? What stops you to go and work in that sanctuary? What stops you to go and work for that charity? What stops you? Belief in yourself, having faith in yourself, knowing that you can do it. Now, there's some people that have been in the past with us. It's gone, if I don't try it now, I'll never do it. Okay, fill your boots in. Go on. Go ahead. And they go on and they've been, moderately successful, mildly successful at what they're doing elsewhere, but they're happy in themselves and doing what they want to do. You're only going round once. The money aspect isn't a material driver for them, because they've not, maybe ignorance is bliss. Maybe the fact is they don't realise what they have to live to survive later on, what they need to live to survive later on. And the resources they'll need to live. I mean, they're equating something like you need at least 43,000 a year to have a really good lifestyle when you retire. Now, to have 43,000 a year to have a good lifestyle when you retire, you've got to have a pension fund of about 400 grand at this point in time to have that sort of thing. That ain't going to happen just like that. And the average pension pot is round about 30 to 60,000. So what lifestyle do you think anybody else is going to have? This is why financial education is so important. But I still can't understand why the governments aren't putting it into the education system as a huge importance. I wonder if any other countries do that.
Yeah, that would be interesting to find out, especially with the way things have went over the last 5-10 years, and the people's living situation and how the way things are heading. You would think, right, we really need to start educating people on how to look after themselves financially, because we're going to have some. I mean, later as we go through the years and pensions change and all the rest of it, do you know there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be on the breadline?
Yeah, definitely. Interesting one. I watch Undercover Boss quite a lot in America.
Mhm.
You know, the one
Yeah,
that's on an extra, 4X or whatever it
yeah,
is.
I've
I'm
watched it.
always watching on a Sunday. There's 3 episodes back to back. Some of them are actually repeats, but I like watching them again. But the one thing it teaches me sometimes when I watch it, it's like the people that get bailed out at the end and they get, here's $50,000 to you, here's a new house to you, here's a new car to you. All of a sudden then go, I tell you what, I'm leaving the company.
Yeah.
It's like, what? So they felt compelled, obviously, to stay with the company because they needed the money. See how that is? That's the
Mhm.
91%. They needed the money, but as soon as you give them the money, it's like, oh, I don't need you anymore, so I'm going to leave. And it's
Going
like,
to move on. Yeah.
that's for me, that's the biggest kick in the teeth ever. It's like
Yeah.
you help someone out by giving them that finance in order to help them out in their life, and then they just go up and leave. It's like,
Yeah.
for me, it's about a loyalty more than probably
Yeah.
that's what I come back to. I'm quite a loyal person to other people,
Mhm.
and loyalty is a big thing for me personally.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's for anybody else, but it does stand in good stead for me. And I like to reward people that are loyal overall. But instantly when you see that, and then you wonder about it's obviously must have been the lack of courage or the lack of motivation or decision making ability that inspired these people. Then when somebody gave them money just to go and leave and
Yeah.
think I could do anything else I want to do, but the reality is more than likely you'll probably be right back where you started in a couple of years' time.
They'll just run right through it all, and yeah.
Well, I used to get told the Graduate Enterprise Programme was a programme at Stirling University and the government put together. And I was one of the 20 people, was it 20 or maybe 40? 40 people, we'll say. 40 people accepted on the Graduate Enterprise Programme. And it was,
Mhm.
it was to come up with your own business idea and see if you can do anything with that. Now, in another life, that's the one I came up with. Fife Employment Gazette was the magazine about all the
Yeah.
jobs and everything, way before anything else. Internet came along. That I then put that on the shelf because I was studying to be an accountant. I thought I'll just stick to that. And stupidly, I shouldn't have. I should have thought bigger. And somebody else started up something, Employment Gazette, actually what it was called, and I believe it went on to become Indeed.
Indeed. Yeah. Just gonna say that. Yeah.
I should have thought bigger. But see, I would definitely say that was down to lack of courage.
Mhm.
And
Courage and
it wasn't
self-belief,
anything to do with motivation because I learned a lot from it. So it was a blessing and a lesson. And decision making ability, I'm not really sure, but I think it was a lack of courage and a lack of faith at that point in time in myself. Now remember, that's early 20s. That's
Mhm.
a long time ago. That's about over
Yeah.
30 years ago. So I just needed to go through all that pain and learn that lesson the hard way through these repeated failures in order to succeed in what I was doing. Now, most people, when they've repeated failures, just lie down and say, well, I'm not really that good at anything, am I? They
Mhm.
don't get up, dust themselves off and get on again. They don't get back on the horse again when they get off. But I did. And how did I do that? Well, I think I had the driving force was basically my partner Elaine
Mhm.
and my children when they came along, and
Yeah.
that's what I felt compelled to do as a result of that. So that's what kept me going every single time, and the very fact that one day I wanted to spend time with Richard Branson and people like that. I wanted to be on his island. I sat and watched, and people were going, "I'm a cab driver," and it's like we come here every year, and I'm like, "What? How do you manage to do that? How could you afford that?" But hey ho, and there I was as a result of that. So if you can dream it and you can believe it, you can achieve it.
Yeah, and it's obviously having those drivers and those things that keep you going and keep you moving forward, and then like having the courage and motivation to do that and taking these chances. And if you don't, and it's like you always say, Jim, somebody's
Yeah.
going to be lying on their deathbed. They're not going to turn around and say, "Oh, I'm glad I lived my whole life and avoided making mistakes and didn't take the chances." Nobody's going to say that.
Show me a person that has avoided all their life making mistakes, and I'll show you a person that's never become successful at anything.
Hmm.
I can guarantee you that. You have to make mistakes in order to
Yeah.
learn. That's how we're taught in our education system. Do you think somebody pops out the and pop out, and if somebody goes, "What's 1 + 1?" They go 2. It's like they have to learn, don't they?
Yeah.
You
Of
have to
course.
learn it. Look at how difficult it was learning to write the alphabet.
Hmm.
A, B, C. God, I mean, I think I've got old jotters from from primary school, and it's pathetic when you look at the way the writing was.
You have to start
But
somewhere.
that was mistakes. Made loads and loads of mistakes when you were walking. When you started walking, you made loads and loads of mistakes when you started walking. Your mother and father never said to you, "Oh, to hell with it. You're never going to master this walking thing. Just sit down for the rest of your life." They encouraged you, and as a society, we should encourage people. It's interesting, but I saw a post. It was either today or yesterday, and it was from somebody from the East Nuke, and it was talking about the garden, the East Nuke garden, they do for the children and all the rest of it to help them. And somebody jumped on and says it takes a community to raise a child, not just a person.
Yeah, that's
absolutely right.
Yeah,
absolutely right. That's what it does take. It takes a number of people to raise a child, but it takes a community. But it needs to be a community that's going to raise them up and lift them as high as possible and let them stand on the shoulders of giants. Every single person that succeeded or failed before has actually got a lesson to teach that person. That's reality.
We're going to finish up. The last point today is about obviously teachers and mentors and things. But just before we do, we were talking about decision-making ability and things, and that really brings us nicely on to point number 6, which is procrastination and putting things off. And sometimes you really need to think, are you that type of person who quickly accomplishes what you think you should do? Or are you like most people where things don't often go the way that you actually intended them to? So that's something that you really need to think about. In procrastination, we've done a whole show on procrastination because it's such an important part of your own success. Because if you procrastinate and can't make decisions and put things off, it really just sets you back.
Yeah, I would say so. Procrastination is one of the biggest. Comparison is the joy, is the thief of joy. Definitely, that's the Instagram thing. Comparison, because people look at, why have I not got that? Procrastination is another biggie. Procrastination is the thing that will hold most people back, and most of the time, procrastination is driven out of the fact that the fear, but it's also driven about the fact that people have got a lot of time on their hands. So rather than actually, it's the fear that drives it, rather than actually have the conflict of what they see as the conflict, having to phone somebody and being uncomfortable in what they're doing, they procrastinate, and they don't do it to the point that they're almost stressed out that they have to do it because it's now last chance saloon. In other words, the critical path has been followed. The time is now, or it's never. You've missed the opportunity. A classic example of that is, let's look at things like I love doing videos and stuff like that. A good one of that is Bowhouse. So Bowhouse, I go down and do a video, I do a walkthrough video of Bowhouse, the market. I like doing that and enjoy it. But sometimes it's like, oh God, I can't be bothered today. It's like, oh, I've got tomorrow though. So if I do tomorrow and I do it on the Sunday, it's like I have to get there in the morning because there's no way you're going to post it in the afternoon because you're too late. Nobody's going to, it's no helpful to anybody at all. So if I'm going to do something, I'll either have to do it, sometime on Saturday, or I'll have to do it early on Sunday morning, or it's not at all. Drone footage. You have to get the sun, the moon, the stars. I'm going out to one now this afternoon, right at the back of this, on the seafront. Beautiful day today. If I don't get drone footage today, when am I going to get it? So now you're at the critical path, because it might be a horrendous day any other day. The tide's in at 2:46. I know that. So there's a classic example about the tide's not going to wait for me, by the way.
The tide in the weather.
Wait a minute, Jim. You're not here yet. I'll stay here till 4 o'clock.
Yeah. So the sun's out today.
It's going to be. I'm now going out at 2:45. I am actually going out of tide now. That's what the tide's doing. It's not going to wait for me. These things won't wait for you. So procrastinating and putting things off is going to make it even worse. So my advice to everybody out there is do things when you're meant to be doing them, and don't sit on it because it causes more stress as a natural result, because you're then under pressure and then something else comes on the back of that, and the time slot you were going to do it had now been taken up by something else that's more critical. Therefore, you've missed the opportunity.
Yeah, and I think putting things off is something that a lot of people will experience and daily do, and without even thinking about it. I mean, think about, we all eat things, or most people eat things that maybe make them overweight or Do you know they'll buy things that probably they know they're going to be broke after doing it, or they're, do you know, they're going to be broke until they get paid again at the end of the month. But people still do it, and you
Yeah.
just put it off. And then, and even like savings and things as well. People have the
Pensions.
good intentions to plan and plan to save, but then they think, oh, I'll put it off this month, I'll put it in next month, and then it builds up and builds up, and then you develop that pattern of staying poor ultimately because you're not saving like you should be.
Of course, you're not investing for the future.
Yeah.
This is classic textbook broke thinking.
Mhm.
You know, it's like you're going to be broke for the rest of your life if you keep going on like this. You need to put something aside for your future into a pension pot. If I had learned, I should have learned this earlier on, but I did learn it earlier on. But I then looked at the view that property was where I was going to be, and I
Yeah.
was going to make an absolute fortune in the property business. And lo and behold, I have over the years in the
Mhm.
private rented sector in terms of what I'm doing. And I was always making a higher return anyway than what I would ever make in a pension. That's why I chose
Yeah.
not to do the pension route. But for most people, they don't do the pension route at all. They don't even do it for their children. Now, your children are qualified for pensions from birth if you want, and they will get up to the basic rate tax added on to any contributions they get from any members of your family. So when you're getting
Mhm.
money for Christmas and stuff like that, they're getting loads of toys off everybody else as well. Stick it in their pension, and
Yeah.
it'll get uplifted by the basic rate tax. So if you put 2,880 in a year, then you'll get it uplifted to 3,600 as a contribution. But the government, they'll pay you over 700 quid on top of
Yeah.
that. Free as a child from birth. That compounding over 50 years to the time that they retire means that they're going to retire at 55.
And quite comfortably,
Everybody
yeah.
else is going to be working till about 70 or 75 at that point in time, because they're talking about putting the pension age up again.
Yeah,
They've
I
only
know.
put it to 67 now, and they're talking about putting it up again, and they'll have to put it up every single time because we're going to live till about 90 years old on average now. The government can't sustain that model on a pension. So they're either going to have to cut it back and make it means tested in the future, or they're going to have to move the pension age a lot higher. And I think they'll just move the pension age because at the end of the day,
Bump it up. Yeah.
it's like you're going to live a lot longer. So the more you work, the more you're going to earn, the more tax receipts they're going to get. And more than likely, the more you work, the more healthier you're going to be. So the less likely that you'll be in hospital ill. So you'll not be a drain on resources. Because to do is what we are. That's how, I mean, you know, let's get back to basics. We are defined by what we are and what we do. That's the reality. You know, if you're a worker ant, or you're a flying ant, or if you're a, you know, a drilling ant, or if you're a, you know, nursing ant, or whatever it is, that ant in that ant colony, you're there to serve that purpose and that purpose only. And this is a basic instinct. If you take it back to animals and you look at things like, yes, we are animals, by the way. If you look at lions and you look at tigers and you look at bears and you look at all these different groups of animals and how they interact with each other, that's ultimately what we like at our core. We've just
Mhm.
managed to systematize things and actually develop all this stuff that we can sell to each other, so the people that produce can get the money from the people that consume. That's
Yeah.
all that is, because money is the driver in our economy, and it's the capitalistic system we operate. So the more money you have, the better choices you get to make. The least money you have, the less choices you have. And you've got no choice, by the way. You just have to do it.
Yeah.
That's the key out of that.
Yeah, unfortunately, and
So
that is the reality. Yeah.
yeah, so you know, don't you'll be poor for the rest of your life if you don't put away. You could ask somebody that's poor, by the way, at 60 and 70-year-old, and think, should you have actually planned a bit more for the future? So if you're a young person, go to somebody that's absolutely stony broke and say, do you think you should have planned for your future earlier on in your life? And every single one of them say, yeah,
Yeah. I
probably
should have.
you're
I
right.
should have. Yeah. So we're going to finish up today talking about not having a teacher or a mentor or people to guide you, or like you say, Jim, to stand on the shoulders of people to elevate your own position. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I know for you, this was a big turning point in your life when once you found the right mentors and the people to accelerate you from where you were to obviously your own success. So, I mean, tell us a bit about that before we finish up.
Well, it's a constant, a constant. It's a constant thing I have to do every single time, trying to find the right people who I can learn from.
Yeah.
And it takes a bit of effort to try and find the right people. But now and again you'll come across them. I mean, you know, if you're listening to somebody's podcast, if you're attending their functions and all the rest of it, and you find out later on it's like, this isn't how I thought it was, just go and do something else. Go and find out somebody else. You will have learned something. You'll either be a lesson or a blessing, and you'll either learn from it. Well, you'll definitely learn from it one way or another. So I would say, it's a constant journey. You know, success is a journey. It's never a destination. So it's a constant, never-ending journey and a never-ending process of improvement in order to try and find the right people, in order to guide you and mentor you throughout your process. Now, a lot of these people that I learn from actually don't know I'm learning from them, because I've become a great observer of human behavior. I'm a great person in pursuit of excellence, in pursuit of knowledge and information, because knowledge, people say knowledge is power, but I think knowledge gives you the power. It doesn't give you the power over someone else. It just gives you the power to empower yourself. So knowledge is empowering. It's not power over someone else. So knowledge isn't power, but knowledge is only any sort of power if you're actually implementing what you're learning as the natural result of that. So having the right people, we're never born into this. You know, you're few and far between. You're lucky if you're born at some in anybody with any knowledge or expertise, or you can teach you. And a lot of people that are born into it even don't learn from the people that have actually been successful, their parents before. Because they've not passed on that information. I was talking to Ian today about this, and you know, I'm probably going to have to sit down with Tony and say, look, you know, you're going to have to do what I do on a weekly basis with Laura, and then she could start to learn what she should be looking for and the key indicators in order to run the property business, but not get involved in it, but just oversee it. You guys run that for me. And so she just understands the dynamics about the KPIs and what to look for and the decisions to make in that process of whether to buy or whether to sell or whether just to sit tight and just be bored
and just let things tick over.
Just let things go. So this is all about imparting the right information, the right knowledge and expertise. I mean, I shared a blog this morning that I learned this morning, and you don't want to hear about the title, to be honest. I don't want to say what the title is because it's disgusting and it's rude. But it was on Diary of a CEO, and I shared it with the rest of my family on our personal message. Because a lot about sexual health, and it's a lot about who you are as a person and the things that happen to your body as a natural result of that. And I thought, do you know, if I was a young person, I would want to know that. You know, what I should be doing, and all about your pelvic floor and stuff like that, and why you're, you know, for women, it's usually why you run to the toilet all the time and why you're leaking all the time. That's what happens to women, because the pelvic floor isn't strong enough anymore because of the babies they've had and everything that's happened to them over the years. But it was a fantastic blog and podcast, and I thought, flipping heck, good on you. I mean, Steve Bartlett was in there like straight away, finding out all the knowledge and information and expertise and asking all the right questions, the questions that everybody else would want to know the answer to. So I thought that was a really good one. So I shared it with the rest of the family. Now, that's all about being honest enough to be that person. It tells them. Now, whether they'll read or listen to that, they're just like, Dad's off his head, sharing stuff like that with us. What's all that about? But at some point in time, they'll need to know that information.
Just anyway. Say, they might not think it now, but they might look back later and think, God, that's why.
So I don't think twice about sharing all that information with my children to let them understand, and to get them ahead of where I was. Because this is things I think I would have wanted to know when I was younger. Maybe would have thought it was uncomfortable, my dad sharing that with me. But because that was never my relationship with my father. But in hindsight, it's like to be open and honest about stuff and to help them move forward is probably the right way forward. And then it'll teach them, if they have children, to be like that with their children as well. So everybody learns as a natural result, and we don't all have this shroud of mystery around the body and stuff like that, and all these different things that you need to know. So teachers and mentors to guide.
As we speak about teachers and mentors and things, and it goes right back to what we spoke about in the beginning of the show. And from the moment you're born, I mean, most people don't really get the chance to learn about money, and it's not taught in schools, and it's usually a taboo thing at home, like you say, Jim. It's not really discussed. It's not really taught.
because they argue about it all the time.
Yeah. So I mean, ask yourself, who did teach you about money? Who taught you about money? Was it somebody who was happy and prosperous as a person? And if the answer's no, then your relationship with money is probably going to not be a very good one.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know? And it's like you say, if your parents have had money troubles and they argued about it, and you're picking up on that, then your relationship with money isn't going to be good either.
Yeah. The amount of people, I mean, Kiyosaki, you know, you've got to hear Kiyosaki talks about Rich Dad, Poor Dad. In order to become wealthy, it's important to have a mentor, but it has to be the right mentor. I was fortunate enough over the years to bump into the right people, but that's as a result of continually trying to bump into the right people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, continually visiting. I mean, somebody actually said to me, I think it was Kevin Wright actually said to me, he says, one thing I love about you, Jim, is like you're prepared to go to the ends of the earth in order to learn something from someone else. He says, you don't shy away from that. You don't think, oh, it's putting me out of my way. And it's like, well, that's what I was taught my mentors in the very beginning.
Yeah.
I was away down to the NIA and the NEC and away down to all these different places for weekend events, you know, Dream Weekend, Family Reunion, Free Enterprise Day, all these different things with thousands of other people. And it became into my mindset that it's like, if you want to be successful at anything, you're going to have to be prepared to put yourself out a bit. In order to do that, because you're not going to be able to learn, and you're not going to be able to learn everything on your doorstep, and you're certainly not going to be able to learn everything from the internet or vlogs or blogs or anything like that. But having a mentor that you can touch base with and actually ask real-time information back and forward and have conversations like this is one of the most important things. So it's the mentor in the upline that's most important, and then it's the functions that you attend, and then it's the books you read, okay, and then it's the podcasts that you're listening to as well. So listen, read, attend, and mentor.
Yeah.
The four wheels on the car. You take one wheel away, you're only left with three. You're no much chance in a Reliant Robin with, you know, the Only Fools and Horses brothers, the Trotters. It's like that's the effect of that. And if you take another one away, you're on a bicycle. You're not going to get there as quick on a bicycle as you would in a car. And that's the reality. And the road that you have is the system that you're involved in. Is it a super highway, or is it a let's make up as we go along?
A dirt track, yeah.
Yeah, let's make up as we go along, and that's the most important thing. Hence the reason why I've talked so much about the financial freedom blueprint that we actually operated, and we still operate today. And I still follow myself all the time. It's literally just a plug in. And I think that most people, when I go into these blogs and vlogs and actually comment on these forums, and it's like, you know, about the 25% return plus that I'm getting in terms of my investments, and everybody's going, aye, right, what are you selling? And I'm like, no, I'm kind of just being honest. It's probably more than that, actually. But it's they don't get it. See the belief. They don't want to believe that's possible. Well, you're right, it's not possible for you.
Yeah.
I'll be immediately going, how the hell are you making that? Because that's the type of things I do. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. How are you making 25%?
Doing that? Yeah.
I would drill down into it. I'd find out what they're doing. And if it's something like, that's who you're making it. It's like, and if it's something I didn't want to do, it's like, fine, I don't want to do that. Or if it's something like, oh, wait a minute, I could do that as well. Or I could do that in a different way and still make just as much money. That's the type of thing that you've got to watch out for. You've got to be open to these opportunities. So that's what I'd say to most people. Come to everything with an open mind, and just absorb the information and make a decision with the facts, and then decide what you should be doing next. Don't just be led by other people. Become a student of life.
Yeah.
That's probably the most important thing I could ever say to this. Become a student of life.
Yeah. And I think
that's why some people get rich and some people don't.
Yeah. Good. That's a good way to end it, Jim, in fact, on today's show. And that is obviously take us right back to the title. Why do some people become rich and wealthy? Why others don't? And I thought hopefully we've covered a lot of topics that will help a lot of people when they're listening. But really think about yourself. Think about yourself, your own experiences. Look at the people around you, and then you might actually realise maybe I should be listening to people who know what they're talking about and find proper mentors and things.
95% won't though.
Yeah, I know. But that's fine. We'll leave it there today, Jim. We're going to do part 2 of this mini-series next Monday, 12:30 as usual. Happiness and prosperity. So join us then, and we will kick off with part 2 on Monday at 12:30. So I'll leave it there, and
Great stuff.
I'll say bye-bye, and thanks everyone for watching, and thanks